going on, everybody? I'm gonna give you guys a chance to come into the conversation. I have an opportunity to speak with the one and only, the extraordinary Dr. Claude Anderson. As you know, Dr. Anderson is the author of the books Powernomics, Black Labor, White Wealth, the Black History Reader, Dirty Little Secrets. He's also the founder of the Harvest Institute, which is one of the leading think tanks in the world. So first of all, before I get started, I want to ask Dr. Anderson, how you doing today, sir?
Oh, I'm hanging there. I guess I'm as well off as most blacks in the country.
How well off is that? Are we doing good or are we doing bad?
You know, as I told you on a number of previous occasions, our people don't own anything of value more than about 1/2 or 1% of anything of value. And that's why in the Black History Reader, it shows that we are a permanent underclass. Everybody owns wealth and resources over us. We're exactly where we were in 1860. We don't own anything of any importance.
Wow. Well, I'll tell you, well, let's hope we can change that. I mean, I imagine there's some things we can do. And I'll tell you, last night we had a real good meeting to talk about ownership. In the Black Business School, we're real big on ownership. Most of our students actually invest in things like the stock market, and a lot of them invest in real estate. A lot of them own their own businesses now. I tell everybody now, in fact, I tell them that your son or your daughter should fill out a form for an LLC before they figure out how to fill out their first job application. So, they two types of pieces of paper you can fill out. Each one requires effort. Why not put some effort into owning something as opposed to just going to work for somebody? And you were talking about something. I was looking through your book, The Black History Reader, which I recommend to everybody who's watching, The Black History Reader, which you can actually find Dr. Anderson's books at powernomics.com. And I was real curious. Recently the stock market took a big crash. The stock market nosedived 700 to 800 points. Right after I gave a lecture to the students yesterday, I was explaining to them what we call the $5 a day investment plan. And I was telling everybody within one generation, if you invest $5 a day in this specific way, you could have a family fortune by the time you're done. And I wake up the next day and I see that the stock market has pretty much plummeted. And so that led me to think about our conversation, which is on history. You know so much history that we never learn in school. And I wanted you to kind of elaborate on what some of us may have heard, but I think nobody's heard it from you. What is the linkage between the history of the stock market and slavery? Like how is that sort of built? I mean, everything in America was built on our backs. We know that a lot of it was. But can you go in detail and talk about the ways the stock market actually links to slavery?
Well, that's a simple one for me. The stock market came into existence, again, to be able to funnel through and be a major foundation for what we call unearned income. See, slavery was based on unearned income, where you had a political, economic, social system was set up in this country that would use Black labor to be able to generate wealth, comfort, and enrichment for a majority white society. And consequently, they put a value on that, what a slave would cost, and how much money a slave, how whites could benefit. So typically a white family might say, well, if I own one slave, my average cost for having a slave would be something like $15 a year. But but the slave must be able to produce at least 5 to 10 times that amount of money what he produces for me as a slave. And consequently, the primary generator of wealth in this country was the back of a slave. A back of a slave became like an American Express card, a Visa card. A white person owned a slave, he'd have to do anything but sit at home, wait for the slave to come back to bring back the money and the wealth. And so that's what's called unearned income. So slavery was based on a very simple premise of unearned income, where whoever could own the tools, the resources, and the slaves could profit and get a major benefit. And at one time, it went up to 1,500% return on every dollar they invested in slavery. And that's why that's why typically a white Southerner who owned one slave, he could, in terms of value, Dr. Watson, in terms of value, he had more value in that one slave than a typical white person in the North would have, throwing his land, his house, and his tools and his income, because a Black slave's value was at $1,500 for a good slave across the nation. That's where the wealth was. But when slavery ended, the United States found that they had invested over $8 billion just in slavery in this country. That was more money invested in slavery than in all the government buildings and all the business put together. That was the biggest investment in this country, was the back of a slave and slavery itself. That's why when Abraham Lincoln recommended that they would be willing to free the slaves, if they could be, and if Congress was willing to compensate the white slave owners. And he sent a letter over to the Congress and say, would you be willing to compensate them? And they said, we don't even have that kind of money. We don't have no $8 billion to pay back all this money for slavery. And that's why when Lincoln made that recommendation, just with a note to Congress, it was rejected. And so when slavery ended, then no longer was the price of cotton and tea and indigo and rice and tobacco regulated off the back of a slave, because the slave's back was no longer available. So then they moved it over to Wall Street. So Wall Street became the major regulators of what you call of entities in advance, and commodities. Commodities switched from off the back of a slave. It switched to Wall Street, and where they built Wall Street, they built Wall Street right where you had a major Black community there, a slave community, right where the Wall Street sits right now. That was a major Black community and a cemetery around there. And so that's your major connection with it right now, from slavery all the way up to where they built the Wall Street building itself and the foundation. And that's the primary connection is that the primary connection you're looking for?
Yeah.
But here's one last point is that now, as far as Blacks concerned, Blacks should get involved in anything that would create unearned income, with the understanding that approximately 87% of white income in America every year when they file the income tax, Dr. Watkins, 87% is unearned income. Whites are not working, now Wall Street replaced the Black slave. Whites are still living off of what used to be slavery. They're now using Wall Street to produce that unearned income. And so consequently, that unearned income off of Wall Street can be broken down into many categories. It can be stuff like rental incomes for commercial property or residential property and tenants and everything else. It can be covered by stocks, bonds. It can be coming from all things from corporate credits and dividends, or profits from selling products and owning shares in a corporation. That is unearned income. Whites are not working for it. 87% of the money right now the whites have every year is coming from unearned income. The worst part about it is for Black folks, since most Black folk don't have discretionary capital because they never got any money since slavery. They don't have the discretionary capital that whites have. Or whites getting 87% of unearned income, they can afford to buy stock all day long. But what Blacks have, most Blacks don't have that much of a discretionary income to invest and buy stock. So I would love someone like yourself and about three or four more of our best Black financiers and stock market analysts to create a Black stock market if it was possible, so we can retain our own money and get unearned income from our own people and keep our own money in our own communities.
Well, everybody, I'm speaking with Dr. Claude Anderson. Dr. Claude Anderson is the author of the book Powernomics, Black Labor, White Wealth, and the Black History Reader and Dirty Little Secrets. He runs the Harvest Institute, which I hope you guys are supporting. It's one of our best think tanks. It's one of the few think tanks that's really doing work for us on our behalf. Now, what you said, Dr. Anderson, about creating a stock market, I tell you that is a massive undertaking, and I've talked to some other finance PhDs and experts about that kind of thing, and what happens a lot of times is that if I go to the people and say, hey, I want to create a stock market for Black people, what do y'all think? They'll say, yeah, do it. Like with the Harvest Institute, like with you, where you say, okay, it's going to cost us $10 million. How much are you putting in? Well, no, I'm not putting in no money behind it. I was just going to tell you to do it or yell at you if you didn't do it and say he ain't out there doing nothing. And I think that that becomes the challenge. I mean, there's literally $1 billion worth of projects that I think you could execute, I could execute, if we even got the same support for the stuff that we do that Disney got when they put out that movie, The Black Panther. They supported Disney, gave them $500 million, for that movie, for a movie. But if someone like yourself steps up and says, okay, the Harvest Institute is doing very important work, we need to make sure the budget of the Harvest Institute is at least $2 million a year. A lot of people don't see that. They don't understand that freedom ain't free. Freedom, if you cannot fund your own freedom, then some would even say you either won't receive it, and some would even say you don't deserve it. What are your thoughts on that in terms of us understanding the importance as a community of sort of financing the things that we believe in?
Right. Well, you're right on target. But the problem is that, nothing has changed for Black folks since 1860, Dr. Watkins. See, when blacks were, see, by 1860, on the eve of the Civil War, almost nearly 100% of all the resources in this country, the wealth in this country had been maldistributed into the hands of the dominant white society. That means that they had maldistributed 2 billion acres of free land. White folks didn't buy the land. All that land you see now running from Maine to San Diego, they didn't buy it. Their ancestors got it free. And in that land with all the gas, the oil, the gold, the silver, the chrome, the bauxite, the magnesium, and everything is in it. They got it free. And that has been passed on from one white generation to the next. And it's been doubling and tripling in value every 20 to 30 years. They got it, and so they don't have to work. They got it. They got the value there. Then also, that slavery also transferred all the businesses and income, rights and privileges, and controls of the levels of government into the hands of the dominant white society. Wealth building, businesses, and income is associated with white skin, and it stayed in their groups. Now, when they say we're going to turn black folk free, and we now set up Wall Street, Dr. White, we're going to set you black slaves free, and we're going to go to Wall Street, set up a Wall Street, but say that and whites got all the land and resources now and all the money, almost 100%. They got about that out of 267,000 black folk, only had about 6,000 or 7,000 blacks that would be called millionaires today. Period. Out of almost 4 million black folk, over 4.5 million black folk. They didn't have no wealth and power. And so they said, we're going to set you black folk free, and we're going to move the wealth building entity and platform off the blacks of black folks. We're going to move it to Wall Street. Now, but say for you black folks, since we own everything, we do not want you to be competitive. So we're going to turn you all loose free. And we're going to have a philosophy called root hog or die. You're going to have to root hog or die. You're going to have to dig for roots and survive. We're going to turn you loose. We're going to turn loose 4.5 million black folk, Dr. Watkins. No land, no businesses, no horses, no animals, no food, no family, no house, no institutions, no education, nothing. But no guns and no weapons. Now you all go out there and defend yourselves and be productive. Now we've set up Wall Street now, and y'all are free. What black folk besides that 6,000 blacks that were already quasi-free that could go to and put money into Wall Street? They didn't have any money to invest in Wall Street. As a matter of fact, those blacks were so poor coming out of slavery, they didn't have anything to put in Wall Street. Some of them got so poor, they had to go back to the white master and beg for him to take them back. Did you know that? We had a lot of blacks, they just went back and begged the white man and said, we just can't make it. They went in these large cities, they were sleeping in alleys, sleeping in basements, sleeping in garages with no jobs. And whites would not let them be on any kind of subsistence programs. Is that if a black died, they buried him out in the field someplace or threw him out in the garage in the lake. He didn't have any resources.
Oh, it looks like Dr. Anderson froze.
Huh?
Dr. Anderson, can you hear me?
Huh? Can you hear me? Are you with me? Boys, what happened? Can you hear me? Joanne. It cut off here.
Okay.
I don't know how to do it.
Well, let's see.
Hey, Dr. Anderson.
Are you there, boys?
Yes. I lost you for a second. I think it was my fault. My apologies.
Okay, good, because I couldn't figure it out.
Yeah, because we stumbled back on you. But did you hear what I said a few minutes ago now? What did I say when I concluded, when it got cut off?
Well, the last part I heard was you were mentioning the many slaves that were freed and had to go back when they were sleeping in alleys and struggling because they didn't have any resources.
That's right. They could not go on Wall Street. They could not buy stock. Because commodities were being regulated now by whites and through Wall Street, not by black folk. And to make sure black folk couldn't play the game, look at the back of your. Have you got the you got the black label white wealth around you right now?
Let me see. I usually have it nearby. You know what? I think I might. Let me see what I got over here. I got my Powernomics. Here's Powernomics. Here's Dirty Little Secrets. I do not have black labor white wealth.
You don't have black labor white wealth?
Yeah, I'm not ready for class from the teacher. I don't have my black label. My apologies for that. But I got three out.
You got to sit on the stool in the corner today. Okay, but if you go to the black when you look at black labor white wealth and go to about the last 5 or 6 pages. And what I showed you is that when they freed these slaves to make sure they didn't have enough money to play Wall Street, to play the Wall Street game, they enacted laws all over the country, Dr. Ward, saying that even black started business, they could not sell their products. Those same commodities that were going on Wall Street, the cotton, the rice, the indigo, stuff like that, they're being sold every year off the stock market. Blacks were not permitted to even raise those crops. They had to have a special license. And look, read those last 5 or 6 pages in outline what every state did. That's why the farmers associations across the country forbid black folk to come to the market with products to sell. They couldn't even sell it locally. And stipulations how much tobacco they could raise, how much rice they could make. They only could sell in their own communities and have enough to eat. They jammed black folk. Black folk could not go to borrow money to develop businesses and to raise their crops. They couldn't play Wall Street. They came out of slavery totally ill-equipped to play it. They were barred from playing Wall Street. They didn't have the money. They didn't have the unearned income. So today we start talking about playing Wall Street. Where are blacks going to get this unearned income? They might have a few black athletes and black entertainers can do it, but most of these blacks don't have the real surplus capital to invest in Wall Street.
Well, that's an interesting point. It leads me to a couple of thoughts. First of all, I will say this. I will say that I do not believe black people have as much financial wealth as whites. We know that, right? We got a tiny fraction of what they got. But I also see a lot of other people coming to the black community to make themselves very rich. If you are a landlord and you're renting out apartment buildings, black people will turn you into millionaires. If you are an Arab that wants to build a corner store, they'll give you money, for 30, 40 years. If you are an Asian that's setting up a hair and a nail shop, you're going to get rich. If you are a corporation, if you're Disney or Warner Brothers and you make a good black movie, black people will put 20, 30, 100, 200, 300, 400 million dollars in your pocket in about 3 weeks. Now, that's not trillions of dollars. That's not, right? But it does say to me that, if a percentage of that money, the percentage of the money that we waste was invested, say, just over one generation, I'm talking about 30, 40 years, one generation where we were, as diligent with investing as we are with spending, we could actually change some of that, and again, I think it's different when you talk about a mass scale, and to probably take a while for us to have more money than whites. But like, I know a lady who I told my students about her last night in our stock market program. I said, she started off dirt poor. She was so poor, they didn't even have a refrigerator in the house. That's how poor they were. And basically, her parents did a very simple thing. They kept her in the library instead of out in the streets and in the clubs and all this other stuff. And number two, when she went to school and got her education and got her first job, her father told her, you need to do 2 things. He never told her to start a business because they didn't have business owners in their family. So she never ever tried to start a business, which would have helped, wealth-wise, but she didn't know anything about that. Her father just told her 2 things. He said, when they ask you how much money you want to invest in the stock market in your 401k, max it out. Put, whatever the largest amount is, you put it in there. Number 2, he said, save your money, keep your credit solid, and buy you a home as soon as you can. Do not go paying that white man rent money for the next 30 years. So she did those 2 things. And when she hit the age of 40, I said to her, you do know that you're a millionaire now, right? And she said, I'm not a millionaire. What are you talking about? I said, no, you're a millionaire. And she said, no, millionaires, like in her mind, millionaires were people that has been studying business and finances and everything and had all this money and were really flashy. And I said, no, a millionaire means that if you take everything you own, subtract what you owe, the net worth is over $1 million. I said, you got $650,000 in the stock market. Your house, you bought it for $250,000, now it's worth $450,000. That's a $1.1 million. You owe about $30,000 in debt. You're a millionaire now. And to me, that shows that even though we might not have as much as white folks, there is a way. There is a way if we use the tools available to us to make our lives better, especially if we take, if we give ourselves some time, just have a long-term plan as opposed to this get rich quick. I'm gonna get me a record deal, or I'm gonna go work for this white man forever, and he's gonna eventually pay me a lot of money, or I'm gonna just spend every single paycheck I get and then start over again every single week because I don't care nothing about saving, nothing about investing. So what do you think about that? What do you think about, if we were able to, instead of waiting for white people to stop acting white, instead of waiting for them to start caring about us, which I don't think they're gonna do ever, it may be 200 years. What do you think about us individually as families just saying, we ain't got much, but that little money, instead of spending it at Popeye's chicken, I'm gonna put some of that in the stock market. Instead of buying some Nike sneakers every time I get a check, I'm gonna go put that money and invest it in something. What do you think about strategies like that too?
I think what you're saying be right on time and right on target. That's exactly what, see, black folk have not learned how to practice capitalism. See, after they came out of slavery, nobody told them how to practice capitalism. You remember, I defined capitalism for you back when capitalism first came into existence, Dr. Watkins, back in about 1504, 1505. When it came into existence, it was based on a very simple premise that you should try to that capitalism should be based on what? Owning and controlling land, resources, tools, and using other people's labor to create wealth. A very simple process. And that it was later defined in a much more broader sense by W.B. Du Bois in about 1915. He said capitalism, in line with what you're saying, is like owning 3 to 4 ears of corn. You eat 1 ear of corn so you have enough strength to live. Two, you would produce corn, and so you can eat it. First you produce it, then you eat it. That's 2 things. 3, then you would sell wherever you can. And 4, you would save where you can. So it's eat, save, and sell, then use the seeds, some of the seeds for next year's harvest. That's how Du Bois defined capitalism as 4 different levels, 4 different things you do: eat, save, and save, eat, selling, saving, and producing. That's capitalism. But whether it's the definition in the 1500s or 1915 with Du Bois, where do you see black folk doing either one of those 4 things? Tell me where you see black folks selling right now. You don't see very many blacks. They don't have that many businesses in the country. Dr. Watson, they don't have any businesses. So they're not selling. Show me what they're producing. What are they producing? 98%, 99% of all the successful blacks in America are running with balls, football, basketball. All they produce is sweat. They're not producing in the products. I mean, all the black athletes, they're not producing the uniforms, the teams, the equipment, the basketball, baseball, bats, gloves. Those things are being produced either in the Caribbean or in the Philippines islands. What are they producing? They're not producing anything, so they're not producing anything but maybe just sweat running. They're not, what are they selling? Most of them are not selling anything. They might be selling music, discs, radios, or some records. So they're not eating the same as, now what are they eating? They all of them have to eat to survive. That's the 3rd thing. And the last thing is investing. What are they investing in? Only those who got some surplus capital can invest. They should invest. That's capitalism. But unfortunately, they don't have, the reason they don't have an investment capital for another simple thing that came up. That is that right now they're spending and they're disposing of 98% of their money outside of their communities. They're not practicing group economics. If you don't practice group economics, then how are you going to produce? How are you going to have a surplus wealth, a surplus capital? If you get, well, we've been trained to just look for a job. A job is not designed to produce enrichment. A job is designed to maintain you, to keep you 1 week away from welfare, food stamps, and unemployment line. You cannot get rich off of a job unless you're good at stealing. So we spend 98% of our money right now outside of our community. Now, the reason other people do well in the stock market, watch this now. We only retain 2% of our annual disposable income, even working. We only keep 2% in our neighborhoods. We give 98% out to 95% out to whites and about another 3% to Asian, Arabs, and Hispanics in our neighborhood that own businesses. And so consequently, whites, Asians, Arabs, and other groups in our neighborhoods, they're living off of 2 incomes because they're not practicing group, and they're practicing group income only for their own people. Their money is not exported out of their community into the black communities. So whites now are living off of 2 incomes. 100% of their money, because they're boycotting black communities, they live off 100% of their money and 98% of black money. Same thing with the Hispanics, Arabs, and Asians. They're not spending any money in the black community. So everybody's living off of 198%, blacks are living off of 2%. They got so much discretionary capital. They got 98, so they're out of 98% I mean 198%, that 98% they can put on the stock market. They can live off of 100% of their own money, but they can take the 98% they're taking from the Black community and they can invest in the stock market. Who's telling Black folk, if you cease and desist in giving your 98% away, and now that $1.3 trillion is going through your hands every year, if you were to capture that money, like I've said in my books, Powernomics, you catch that money and revolve it around 8 to 12 times before it leaves your hands. Now, instead of having $1.3 trillion in your communities, collectively in your communities, you would have $13 trillion in your community. So now you're a power. Now you got surplus capital that you can now spend because it revolves around. You can now invest in Wall Street. You cannot invest, most Blacks cannot invest in Wall Street because they keep giving their money away, giving it to everybody, enriching everybody else. Black people, in conclusion, Black people, Dr. Watkins, has enriched every group of people on earth, every religion, every ethnic group, every gender group. Blacks have enriched everybody on the earth except themselves because they don't practice capitalism and they don't practice group economics. And they keep trying to live off of 2%.
All right. Everybody, I want you guys to know, and I agree with you 100%, by the way. I want everybody to know who I'm talking to. I'm talking to Dr. Claude Anderson. He's a professor that you cannot find anywhere else at any of these expensive universities. He is his message is too strong and direct for Black people and built for Black people. And so his institution is us. We are his institution. And this is where his work has the most impact. Make sure you go check out the place where you can buy his books. You can go to powernomics.com to buy copies of Powernomics. I keep Powernomics, the Black History Reader, and also Dirty Little Secrets nearby. And I got my copy of Black Labor, White Wealth around here somewhere. I just can't find it. But I'm gonna tell you, that book is marked up. I got stuff circled and underlined and everything, you know, because it's the kind of book. First of all, I'm gonna tell you all this. Just please listen to me when I tell you this. You know, stop thinking that education happens in these schools. It does not happen in these schools. Education happens in your house. That's where it's got to happen. And when you choose as the headmaster, as the teacher, as the principal in your house, have the students in your home, including you, your spouse, your children, everybody, start off reading books from Dr. Claude Anderson. So when they want to learn history, have them read a book like this, The Black History Reader. What he does is he goes through a lot of questions. I want to say almost 100 different questions that relate to Black history. Looking here in the book, there's 101 questions about Black history that you're not going to learn in school, and he breaks it down very, very well. And Dr. Anderson, what I want to ask you about, and actually before I ask you this question, everybody who's watching, please hit the share button, subscribe button, and the like button so that this video can be shared far and wide. Another institution we have is our own media. We are our own media. We reach 1 million Black people a week, and we're educating with that platform. You point to me any other platform this big where Black people are being educated in this way. There's nothing out there. One area where you are, though, giving fake education is with this brainwashing that's happening right now with these, you know, the Democratic Party and the Conservative Party, Republican parties trying to get your vote. And that leads me to ask Dr. Anderson about this. Okay, you know, y'all know my opinion on voting. I've said do what you want. I don't think anybody can point to any examples where voting for the Democrats consistently has ever benefited Black people. You're not going to hear this anywhere on mainstream media because they're all getting paid by the Democratic Party. We don't talk to politicians. But I want to ask you about something that you have in your book, The Black History Reader, on page 84, Dr. Anderson. You asked...
Say, Dr. Watkins, before you ask me that question, can I mention one thing?
Please.
This is to your credit, to show you the strength that you have in your off your platform and in the wider Black communities throughout America. You know that I told you way back about 4 months ago, that when you start mentioning the Harvest Institute in terms of donations, from soliciting donations for us, it jumped way up. And those Black folk responded across America. And we've done pretty well, just strictly based on what you asked the Black folk to do. They responded. You're to be patted on your back, and you should be proud. You did do it. And I want you to know that. Now, secondly, that just in the last week, when I came on your program with the Black History Reader, guess what? You mentioned that and say that here's a book that you all should be reading. Do you know those Black folk did what makes me always deeply in love with Black folk? They responded. See, I don't expect very much from the overclass or some of the bureaucratic Blacks. When you told those Blacks to go out and buy the Black History Reader, do you know those Blacks poured out there and they did a fantastic job? So you've done it twice now with the Institute and with the Black History Reader. And now our book sales went up. And even though I still have I cannot get our books into the public schools because the textbook committees in every state is only controlled by whites who dictate what black kids are going to read in the public school system. It has to be passed an advisory board and a book selection committee. And on the black college campuses, they're just as bad off. They made black college campuses, historical black colleges, are nothing but miniature white colleges now. 68% of all the staff on those historical black colleges, Dr. Watkins, are not black instructors, professors. They're either whites, Indians, Arabs, or Hispanics. And they have no interest in teaching black history or black economic development. And secondly, on those black historical college campuses, that all the bookstores on those campuses are owned by whites, and they also determine what textbooks will be made available to classes. And even on the campus, there are now a significant number of the students on those campuses are coming in are whites, Arabs, and Asians that are getting scholarships on black college campuses with a little bit of money they got in there to give them to them to help them subsidize them coming to a black college campus because they couldn't get it from a white college campus. And the last thing is most importantly, in terms of the corruption of the historical black colleges, is back in 1996, President George Bush passed a policy that says any white college that gets a 21% Hispanic population in the student body, they are now equal to black folk in drawing money out of historical black colleges. So now the pot of money is set up. We're going to put this amount of money into historical black colleges. They trick black folk. That white colleges now can draw that money out. They got a 21% Hispanic population. They're equal to blacks in a pot that was set up for black folk. So right now, whether it's the public schools or the black charter schools or any schools, private schools, I can't get those books in there because they don't. Whites are basically homicidal and not suicidal. They do not want black folk learning how to practice group economics, how to be able to produce, sell, and save and invest in Wall Street with their funds. They're not going to teach them that. So I want you to know that, but I'm proud of you and what you've done for the Black History Reader and all our books, and also for the Harvest Institute before you go on. So now I'll step back and let you finish your statement.
Well, I appreciate that very much, and I will accept that. Thank you, but I will also say to everybody watching, this is our job. This is what you do when you are being competitive. Black men and black women, we stand together, we support each other. You take the people that you love and support, that you believe in, and just ask yourself, what can I do? What can I do? This ain't a basketball game where we need cheerleaders and people sitting on the sideline. This is a game where everybody got to be a player. Pick up a ball, get out there, play some defense, set a pick. If you play basketball, you know what I'm talking about. Get out there and do something. Everybody can do a little bit. So if you want to go support the Harvest Institute, which is a great think tank that's doing amazing things for black people, you can go to harvestinstitute.org. That's harvestinstitute.org. Please write it down. Please share it and tell everybody about it. And so, Dr. Anderson, what I want to ask you is this question. In your book, on page 184, and this goes back to Democrats, kind of going out begging black people for the vote. It makes me a little sick. I throw up in my mouth every time they start doing those stupid commercials in every city where they ain't paid no attention to black people for 4 years, but when it's time to get the vote, they showing up like horny frat boys trying to get some ass on a Friday night, And so I looked in your book and I thought about I picked this page because I thought about the fact that what you were talking about earlier. A lot of the so-called liberals that, the people that were kind of on our side, say during the Civil War, from the North, the cities where we felt free and all these other things, they weren't really on our side. There were black people getting lynched in the North, black people being killed because they were coming and taking jobs from white folks. And so, that's what I think about when I see what liberals do today. I see a lot of racism coming from the Democratic Party, stuff like that. And you actually have a section where you ask, should blacks ally with liberals or conservatives? And one thing you mentioned in the book, and I'd like you to elaborate on this, is that there is a scant difference between liberals and conservatives. Neither is willing to drastically alter the socioeconomic structure to benefit black Americans. Consequently, if blacks choose either side, they will still wind up in the same spot, at the bottom of a ranking order of acceptability, powerless and impoverished. Can you kind of speak to that a little bit?
Yes. See, what black folk is summarized pretty well in the terms themselves: conservatives and conservatism. And conservatives is is a defining term between liberals. Conservatism comes from the root word to conserve. To conserve, Dr. Watkins, means to hold on what you got, or to say that you who all don't have ain't gonna get. If I told you that when slavery ended, black folk had zero, nothing, and whites are gonna and you're gonna start promoting conservatism. Now watch this. Going all the way back to when slavery started, it started on the back of conservatives. Conservatives were the people that set up the slavery system in America. And guess what party they belonged to that time? They were what? Democrats. Democrats were the people that enslaved black folk for 360 years. And they did it under the concept of conservatism. And conservatism later on became what they called the Confederacy, the Southern Confederacy of states, because those were the conservatives. Now you all call them the red states. They're still the same people. The 1860 conservatism and the Confederates are still the red states today. Now what does liberal mean? Liberal means somebody that's supposed to have an open mind and be receptive to being fair and equal. But that does not affect white folk, because when slavery went into effect, 98% of all the white people in America, there were no white liberals in America of any consequence. There might have been a few here and there. 98% of all the whites in America were basically conservatives. That's why 98% were totally opposed to freeing slaves. That was in 1860. Why? Because they did not want blacks to be competitive with them, and they wanted to get the advantages of having black folk around them to wait on them, serve them, and protect them and nurse them and everything else. Now, so what's the difference between a conservative? A conservative is a person, a group, a competitive group of people who will sink your boat. They are self-centered, they're aggressive, they're economically inclined, and they're very competitive on a race matter. They're basically hardcore racists. They will sink your boat in a second. Now, what's the difference between that and a liberal? A liberal is the one who will watch them sink your boat, but he'll go up there and try to straighten it, give you napkins and try to put a pillow on your head while your boat goes down. Liberals are not going to come. Liberals have never done anything for black folk. You had a few liberals that tried during the 1860s, between 1866 and 1876. They were called radical Republicans. This was the first time anybody wearing the logo Republican tried to help black folk for a 10-year period. That period was called Reconstruction. And at that point in time, they said we must do something for black folk to correct what happened in 1857 in Dred Scott decision, which said a black person has no rights that anybody's bound to respect. They said, well, so we're gonna come out with some laws, civil rights laws, to try to give them some benefits, the 14th Amendment, 13th Amendment, to help black folk. That lasted for 10 years. And after, by the time that 10 years was nearly up, the United States Supreme Court came in and said, we are conservatives. And we are totally opposed to anything to elevate black folk. That's why you hear all these people now in these Supreme Court decisions boasting about being conservatives. Why in the world, or why, I don't even want to use the word, why in the hell would black folk be sitting at a television listening to somebody talking about conservatism and putting conservatives to the Supreme Court, which means we're going to make sure that things go back to the originality where they were during slavery. That's why they keep talking about, I'm not a judicial activist. I'm a judicial conservative. I'm based on the original concept of the Constitution. The Constitution says black folk are 3/5 of a human being. They're not to be equal to white folk in any sense of the word. And so now they stacked the Supreme Court last week with another conservative. And you see everybody boasting about conservatives and conservative that. You're never going to get anything from conservatives. Now the liberals, on the other hand, that the Democratic Party then took the Republican Party out in about 1876. They took them out again and took over the power. And so never in the history of the nation has anybody ever represented black folk. So even though blacks came out of slavery and went into the Republican Party did nothing for black folk up until about 1950s. Then in 1950s, when black folks said, we're going to leave the Republican Party because you're not doing anything for us, we're going to go over and join the Democratic Party. And when black folks started marching out of the Democratic Party, because they thought there was going to be some liberals on the other side, they went across the street to join the Democratic Party. Guess what? The old redneck Confederates walked out of the Democratic Party out the back door and went over and joined the Republican Party. So the present day Republican Party, those are the old Dixiecrats and that racists that had blacks enslaved for 360 years. They Jim Crow segregated you for another 100 years. That was the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party has enslaved black folk and Jim Crow segregated black folk. Out of the 460 years, they did it for the 450. On the 10 years, did the Republicans try to do anything for blacks? The Democrats have never done anything for black folk, neither has the Republicans. So the issue between liberals and conservatives ain't a dime worth of difference in them. Neither one gonna do anything for black folk. And that's what, and they get blacks get tricked every time there's an election by white folk giving the pretense that somehow if black folk join a political party, they're gonna get some benefits. The best way for them to be surviving is to get their own political party, stay away from the Democratic Party, stay away from the Republican Party, and vote as a bloc, a national bloc nationally for a black Democratic Party, and say we will vote for whoever promises the most and delivers to black folk. And if I get a chance right now, what I would do, let me give you an example. I would go right now to Trump. I would take the chance right now and gamble my reputation to go to Trump and say, I know as a Republican, you ain't gonna do a damn thing for black folk, but I got 2 projects right now that would be a national promise, a thing for black folk, never been done, that would create hundreds of thousands of jobs across this country and wealth building for black folks so they can go to Wall Street. If I can get Trump to be able to endorse the program, I could create right now with a couple of projects I got on the board that would create all kind of wealth for black folk. But yet the Democrats are not going to do it. And I'm not sure I want to line up with the Republicans. I don't want to be a Republican. I'm an independent. But I can show you how to build 2 major industries in the country. But neither party right now wants to do a damn thing with black folk, because the liberals are supporting women issues. They following the sexual revolution that took place in the 1970s. Nobody cares about black folk, neither Democrats nor liberals. But I can go right now and get out of both parties, create an independent party, and create 2 major programs right now where black folk can get all kind of wealth and business opportunities across America.
Well, you know, I agree with that. Actually, it's funny because a lot of people feel like if any prominent black person even meets with President Trump, that you're selling out because you're not being loyal. And I'm sitting there thinking, loyal to what? You know, loyal to the Democrats? The Democrats ain't loyal to you. I've always felt that way. That, you know, if Trump wanted to meet with me, I'd say, okay, sure, let's meet. You know, let's see what you're going to do, because if he's trying to prove something, right? Because one of the things that he seems to be eager to prove is that he cares more about black people than Barack Obama. And that's an unfortunate kind of, it's sad that that's even a contest, but it's the reality is that a lot of people, smart people, are aware that very little got done in the Obama presidency. Very little got done for black people under Obama. So the bar is set real low for Trump, so literally, it almost seems to me that they might be eager to fund something like what you're saying, because if you're talking about building business and industry, that's what this White House believes in. They believe in business. They're all businessmen and everything else. And also, I think that, if you told them, look, put $500 million in this initiative, then, I'll give you credit for that. So I don't even see why that's such a bad conversation to have. And it almost seems like people are so caught up in the emotionality of politics, like, oh, I hate him and I hate him. Don't you sit down with somebody you hate, to the point where they've forgotten how to really play the game. What are your thoughts on that? Because I know you did a lot of work in politics and you kind of know how this is played, the quid pro quo and everything else.
Well, right now, I have a shovel-ready project. One in particular, I mention this one. I have a shovel-ready project right now that would create a major infrastructure improvement across this country that black folk could identify with. Trump could get credit for it if he wanted to, but black folk could get major benefits. And this is something that I could discuss with you on the air, but again, I'm scared. I don't want to take the risk of being identified with Trump when I'm an independent. But he could, if I could sit down with him, all he has to do is endorse the project. I got something like about people that pledge as much as $45 billion. $45 billion. And guess what? In the Wall Street Journal this past Monday, on the front page of the Wall Street Journal this past Monday, they announced that the new trend in this country is going to be for infrastructural improvement. And one of them going to be what? High-speed rail. I got a high-speed rail right now system all worked out. Been working on for 3 or 4 years that would create hundreds of thousands of jobs for the public in general and black folk in specific. Never in the history of this nation, I told you, slavery, has anything ever been done for black folk. But yet I got to find somebody that got the button to push that says, go do it. And the money's sitting on the table to do it. There's already been pledged to do it. But a lot of the money coming in from out of the country. But yet I got to figure out how to sit down with somebody without getting blemished, because I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat now. I'm an independent. But black folk right now have to stay out of the parties and say, I'm not going with any party unless they put something on the table for black folk. based on quid pro quo. Politics means getting benefits. You don't vote just to get an exercise. You don't vote because somebody died or got killed trying to vote. You vote to get benefits. That's what it was based on. Quid pro quo, something for something. One hand washes the other. Black folk must start understanding it right now in this society. They are the only permanent minority. Nobody needs black folks vote in this country, Dr. Watson. White folk can vote anytime they want them. They outnumber blacks 10-1. Why would white folks need your vote? They can go vote anytime they want it. They use that as like an intellectual masturbation process, tell you to go out and vote, knowing your vote doesn't count for any damn thing. It doesn't count. They know your vote means nothing. All they want to do is give you the pretense that you're doing something. Because right now, if black folk didn't vote at all, white folks still put in place anything they want, economically, politically, and any otherwise. So you must tell black folk, they must learn how to play hardball, say, we will vote as 44 million strong voters if you promise to put something on the table for us that would go strictly benefit us. Don't start that old business about what you do for women, about the Me Too movement, what you're gonna do about gays and women and transsexuals, anybody else, poor people, strictly for blacks. But black folk have been tricked all throughout history, especially since the 1860s. They're always engaged in politics for someone else's best interest. They carry water for everybody but their own people. This is the last time this coming election, black will have a chance to carry water for their own damn people and quit letting the Democrats or Republican trick them. Say, look, put something on the table, you get our vote. Other than that, we're not voting, we'll stay home because we're not gonna get a damn thing up. You cannot lose what you didn't have.
Everybody, make sure you hit the like button, share button, subscribe button. I'm talking to Dr. Claude Anderson from the Harvest Institute. He's the author of Powernomics, Black Labor, White Wealth, The Black History Reader, and Dirty Little Secrets. If you want to go check out his books, you can go to powernomics.com or harvestinstitute.org. Also, make sure you subscribe at drboycetv.com. That's where I go live. So make sure you subscribe to drboycetv.com. Also, if you want to remain connected via text message, you can actually text the word Boyce to 31996, 31996. Just type in my name and text it to 31996, and then we'll stay connected. I'll let you know when I go live. So, Dr. Anderson, let me ask you this question. Speaking of Barack Obama, in your book, The Black History Reader, you have a section, question number 44. You said, what will be President Barack Obama's greatest and most memorable legacy? Now, I was looking through this, and I was looking through what you wrote about Obama and him saying in a speech in 2016 that it would be a personal insult and an insult to my legacy if the black community does not support Hillary Clinton's candidacy so she can continue my legacy. And then you mentioned that black folks still went on and didn't really pay much attention to what he said. And you also said, despite the fact that black folks gave Barack Obama nearly 100% of the vote, that the quality of life, all the measures of how well we were doing actually worsened under Obama, that we actually went backwards under Obama when we were all excited about having our first biracial president. Can you kind of speak to that a little bit in terms of how you think history is going to remember Barack Obama and how we should sort of remember ourselves?
In my personal opinion, Barack Obama was the worst thing ever happened to black folk, period. I know, because I know black folk identify with him for emotional reasons by saying, Dr. Anderson, it just makes me feel good to know that there's a black person there. So what? If he's doing the same thing to you that white folk did, I mean, if he's screwing over you, why would you make you feel good? They said, well, because we know what you've been telling us, that all throughout history, there's been a love affair going on between blacks and whites. And whites are always the screwers and blacks are the screwies. And we've been screwed, white folks have been screwing us so long that we've fallen in love when we got a love affair going. And so if you put a black man there and he does the same thing, what's the difference? And so what Obama has done, he violated one of the things that back in slavery, there was a thing called a praying black slave. And he prayed saying, dear God, he said, one day I pray that among our people there will arise a warrior that knows our suffering and knows our dilemma and will come up and fight our battles. And blacks prayed for a black president for 460 years. They finally got one, and guess what? He said, I can't do anything for black folk. Basically said, I can't help that praying slave. And he said, I got to represent all the people. And that's an insult to black folk. Now, here black folk have been excluded, subordinated, exploited, misused, and abused for 460 years. I can't help them. But yet they gave him 98% of their vote one time, the first election, and 96% the next time. And yet, by the same token, the people that Obama decided to help were people he didn't get very much support from. He spent every year, he invited American Indians to the White House, gave them $3.5 billion every year to the American Indians. That vote didn't put him in the White House. And he gave everything to the Hispanics and the DACA and all these other immigrant groups, giving them a $3.5 billion for 100,000 his Mexican kids that showed up on the Texas border. Gave them monies. He gave monies. He supported all these Jewish programs. He supported things for Arabs, but he never supported one single thing for Black folk. Talking about, well, if I do something for them, I can't do that. I got to represent all the people. But Black folk are all the people, and the only people that's been excluded, marginalized, were Black people. And so what has happened now is Obama has become a model. He's now a model for any white president from this day forward. He's a model for Trump and all future presidents, saying, and all they got to do is say this, that that Obama didn't do anything for Black folk, then as a white president, why should I do it? And see, as a matter of fact, Al Sharpton was asked that on the Morning Joe show one day, and said, why doesn't Obama help his own people? And so, and Al said, well, I don't want to do that because why should he do that? That'd be racist. For Obama, for me, ask Obama to do something for Black folk when the whites didn't do anything for him. I thought that was a real negative answer from my friend, and I know Sharp, he's a good guy, my buddy, but that was a dumb answer to put out there. Because if my family right now is drowning in an ocean or in a lake or in a river, and everybody is standing on the side of the banks watching them drown and refuse to go out and help them, and then somebody comes by and says, Dr. Anderson, I see your people drowning out there, your family, your daughter, your children, your cousin, your mama and daddy, they're drowning in that water. Why don't you go out there and save them? The dumbest thing I can say is, well, I don't want to do that because if I did that, I'll be prejudiced towards them. And why should I do it if nobody else will save them? Then I shouldn't try to save them either. Don't ever say that to your people. You got a responsibility and obligation to help your people. That's the whole point of politics. So what has happened, and I understand Al and everybody else has their opinion, so I don't want to say anything negative about them, but Obama did Black folk a total disservice. He became a president, did nothing, and now he's going to try to go around and say, y'all need to go out and vote again. What did they get? Tell every Black person, get a piece of paper and write down anything in the history of this nation that a Black person had ever gotten into a public office and done for Black folk. I only know 3 when I was in politics that tried. Harold Washington tried in Chicago, and Maynard Jackson tried it in Atlanta, and a couple of Blacks I know across the country tried to help Black folk when they were in political office. But 99% to 100% of every Black that's been in public office is scared to represent Black folk. What they want to do is say, I'm here to represent everybody. I can't help Black folk. If you can't help Black folk, don't run for a public office. Go home and sit down and watch Oprah every night.
Well, I'll tell you, I remember watching Sharpton interview somebody on MSNBC, somebody from the Trump administration, and the Trump official said something that was true. He said, they were talking, I forgot what issue they were talking about, but he said Obama did this much, we did that much. Now, neither one of them didn't do hardly anything, but he was able to say we did more than Obama. And so then I saw Sharpton say, well, yeah, but the racial wealth gap is X amount of dollars. What is the Trump administration doing to fix that? And the problem with that question is that is a question that I know he never would have asked anybody from the Obama administration. He never would have asked that question. So I'm sitting there thinking, why are you asking these questions now? Because they're going to look at you and say, well, did you ask that to Obama? You sat there with this show for how many years and you were carrying water for the White House and pretty much a government employee the whole time. Why did this question never come up? And I think that you're right. We set a really dangerous precedent, and no politician, if I'm any politician, if I'm white, I don't do nothing for Black folks if I get in office. All I got to do is say, well, what did Obama do? He's Black. Okay, we doing more than him, then that's our benchmark. We done it. These Negroes don't deserve anything. They don't ask for nothing, so they can't ask me for something. I mean, their own person didn't do anything. So I know you got to go, Dr. Anderson, and I appreciate you kind of breaking this down. I've told everybody, I'm not voting for a Democrat or a Republican. I am independent, and you got to earn my vote. You can't get my vote by trying to tell me that that the other party is scary, or that my ancestors died for me to vote for the Democrats and all this stuff. My ancestors did not die for me to vote for no Democrat. My ancestors died for me to have freedom, and that's what I'm going to pursue. So, Dr. Anderson, do you have any kind of parting words, kind of as we move forward into this election cycle? In terms of
right. Well, the best way. Let me wrap it up by saying this, based on one of the points you just made. See, Black folk need to understand that if putting a person in office is not going to do anything for you, except that once in a while, when a black person is shot or run over or killed or thrown off the top of a building, then all black folk can do is go out and protest. See, politics is more than just protesting. And see, the minute a politician tell you let's go out and protest, that means you're a loser. And see, and every black civil rights leader, every black politician, once he gets in office, all they're gonna tell black folk do, well, you need to protest. Let me tell you one thing straight up front. Black folk need to understand the difference between protesting and demanding. Anytime you're protesting, you're already a loser. You're protesting something that you're admitting to the public that you're totally incapable of correcting and getting resources from it. See, in other words, you should be demanding up front. And so before you even elect a politician, there's a big difference between the protesting something and demanding. Demanding means that you're demanding that you get credit for and receive something that you're entitled to that was due you. Protesting means you're now raising issues about something that's after the fact. It's too late. And now you're appealing to their conscience or something. And so consequently, what blacks need to do is learn how to practice politics based on demanding, Dr. Watkins. No more protest politics. Throw protesting, flush protesting politics down the toilet along with half some of these civil rights organizations, and started demanding, saying, if I support you for an office, I'm gonna demand that you deliver benefits to me based on a quid pro quo, something that is tangible, measurable, that I can go to the polls, go to the banks with, and cash in and get resources. No more protesting for rights, demand for resources. And that's the difference in the politics. And black folk, I've never seen black folk in 60 years ever go out and demand anything. That's one of my Cuban friends told me down in Bay of Pigs, after Bay of Pigs tens in Miami when I was over education. He said, Dr. Anderson, the biggest difference between us as Cubans and you black folk would never get anything, because all you want to do is put politicians in office, then go out and try to protest when they don't do anything for you. They didn't do anything for you, it's too late. And now after Obama been in office for 10 years and didn't do anything for you, now you go out and ask him to help you. He can't do anything. He's null and void. He's neutered down to the hip. And so what you do, you demand up front, say, I would elect you to office, public office. But if you get my vote, I want a written contractual agreement between your running for office and getting elected and black folk getting benefits, tangible, measurable benefits, no symbolic things, no ceremonious thing. I don't give a damn about your representing, respecting, or recognizing Martin Luther King's birthday, or going out talking about we're gonna name a street after Rosa Parks. That's immaterial. Or you might hire a black secretary. What are you gonna put in tangible, measurable terms in black folks' pockets? And what are you gonna put on their tables for food that they can eat and be able to subsist in this country and exist? And so that's the difference. Demand, no more protests. When you hear these civil rights leaders all the time, they're gonna protest, you tell them it's too late. You tell them, said, Dr. Anderson, it's too late. Don't go protest after every time they shoot a black, you'll go out and protest. Why don't you get enough wealth and power and build that 5-story building that I told you, the Anderson 5-story building? If you own the businesses in the community and you build business and got an economy and you can control the politics, then you can control the third level, which is the police department. They're gonna keep shooting black folk forever until you learn how to be able to control the economy in the bottom. They control and buy and control all the politicians who will control the courts and the police department. And black folk don't understand that. They're gonna have a black shot every other week, especially young black males. And from now on, and that's about my concluding remarks to tell you, they better learn how to demand, no more protesting, demand and demand and demand, and take nothing less.
All right. Well, you know what? We are running out of our time, but this has been very powerful. Everybody, please write this down. Please write this down. I would love for you to please join me in supporting Dr. Claude Anderson and his very important work. You can do it in a couple of ways. One, make sure your kids are reading his books. You can get all of his books at powernomics.com. That's powernomics.com. I'll tell you, Dr. Anderson, you know, when you were talking about the school board having the book committees and stuff like that. Well, you know, I had that same problem. You know, a lot of schools wouldn't bring somebody like me in because I'm just too black, too radical. So I said, you know what? I realized that the original school board, the original book committee is the mother and the father. That should be the book committee for your child. So I said, you know, I don't need to go to these schools. I'm not going to try to go to them. I'm going to use the internet and I'm going to go straight to the parents, you know, and that's how we were able to get 5,000 children in our Black Millionaires of Tomorrow program for kids, for, you know, to help teach them how to build wealth and how to be producers and consumers and everything else. And so what I want you guys to do is to help us with that, with Powernomics and Black Labor, White Wealth and Dr. Anderson's books. You know, you don't need a school board's permission to have your children reading those books. I had my children read those books. My kids have copies of Powernomics. So I hope that you will give them, your children, copies of these books as well. So powernomics.com, Black Labor, excuse me, harvestinstitute.org. Go check that out. Also, I've got some more books if you want to go check my books that are me and other people at drboycebooks.com. That's drboycebooks.com. You can see some of my recommendations as well. Make sure you hit the like button, share button, and subscribe button before you get out of here. And I want to say thank you very much, Dr. Anderson. I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Right. Let me make one closing comment. Tell them to get those books. Right now, the Powernomics Corporation has a special to get all 5 of my books in a power pack. It's called a library pack to get all 5 books plus a DVD on how to educate Black children. They get all of them for $99. It's called a library pack. Go to the powernomics.com and order those books. If you get those books, you have all you need to know in these public schools about what you should be doing as a Black person that practice group economics, and get yourself in a position where you can go to the stock market and buy some stock, because it'll teach you how to practice group economics. Again, it's called a library pack for $99. If you go to powernomics.com, and we've done very well in the last couple of weeks because of you. We're indebted to you. You've done a magnificent job of getting the word out to our people, and I'm very proud of you. And I'll always support you anytime, any place, Dr. Boyce Watkins.
Well, I appreciate that. That means a whole lot to me, and I really believe I believe in the future. I'm very optimistic. I think it's going to take some time, but there's no way that we could be working this hard and doing this much in front of this many people and not have a huge impact. Impact on the community. You know, everybody in here, a lot of these people got children. They're teaching their children different. They're sharing this information with people that they love, and I really believe that we're on the ground floor of something that's going to be extraordinary. So I do not fret, I do not fear, I do not believe this is in vain. You, in my opinion, are almost like a George Washington for Black people. You're right there with Marcus Garvey and the other great Black men that they won't teach about in school. But the Black men and women that really make a difference in the community are the ones that are going to build the empires that are going to come in the next generation. So thank you very much, Dr. Anderson. Again, I appreciate it.
Thank you. And I love you, buddy.
Love you too, my friend.
All right. Bye-bye now.
You too. Bye-bye.